this is what we heard from you. We spent a lot of time talking to you. These are the kind of things we heard. You have a lot of strength in this community. There are a lot of advantages, a lot of pluses. Downtown, these are some of the things we heard. The last one, the need to define its identity for downtown, that came through loud and clear. And then the opportunities that we see in downtown. This third one, be modern but be simple and be quiet. I think that there are a number of different opinions about the direction that Tremonton should take. This is just a little graphic about sustainability. This is a sustainable design assessment team. I mean, a lot of people associate sustainability with environmental issues, and it is true. But there are two other factors that go along with environmental issues, and those two factors are the ones that are really very relevant to Tremonton. The first is economic sustainability. That is that the money in the community needs to stay in the community, and social sustainability too. You want families, you want your children to stay in Tremonton, and you want their children to stay in Tremonton.
My role is to look at the residents here and some other demand factors to see, what value do these different inputs have on the overall economy, and which ones can we harness. Your number one in income, your eighth as it relates to overall employment and employment growth, and your fifth in population growth in the United States. Population of the town is around 8,000 people. Reasonable growth. Surprisingly, you guys are having about 60 units of new residential construction coming in, which is extremely favorable for a market this size. And the quality of housing is strong. The median value of housing here is about $150,000. A very low unemployment rate, so jobs are high, confidence is high, and that means there's opportunity. That job growth is estimated to continue to increase over 20 to almost 30% here locally, which is extremely important when you're attracting new residential or looking at growing your commercial base. Fortunately for you guys, you've got a very young, affluent community, and a lot of those are comprised of the millenniums who want to live near downtowns, want to live in that urban environment, want to live close to where they work. And so I think when you're looking at design, it's important to know the composition of the community. Sources of demand. Most economic research is based on residential consumers, and that's where you're going to get generally 70–80% of your demand. Other buckets of opportunity, and those would include commuter demand, workforce, and also Utah is certainly known for its visitors. Grocery stores and convenience items were one of the most, or one of the few oversupplied items. As you're looking to pursue new retail, I think you'd want to be sensitive to the existing operators here. And restaurants are the most undersupplied, and that's actually one category that we found that you can't have too many restaurants generally in a community. We also spent a lot of time looking at workforce, where the major employers are. And we really limited most of that research within 17 miles. Ultimately, we aggregated about 2,000 employees that we could rely on a daily basis that we think that would provide input just for that downtown market. Overall, you've got about 13,000 square feet of demand that your local workforce would support. We found if you have the right businesses, and you do have some of those, hospitality, gas stations, and quick serve restaurants, that you can increase the capture rate, but on average, you can capture about 2 to 3% of those commuters that are driving by that would actually spend money in your community. The better you merchandise the interstate, the higher the capture rate, and in my mind, looking at the relationship between commuter and your economy, that's generally just free money. The largest total aggregate demand was along I-84 and Main Street. That was about 28,000 cars a day. If you apply that 2% capture rate, that gives you about $2 million of retail spend, which would support at least 7,000 square feet of annual demand. We really wanted to spend some time and look at what sort of capture rate and what sort of opportunity there might be to harness that visitor demand. Essentially, we looked at the major attractions. There's certainly a lot more attractions than this, but we aggregated about 1.4 million visitors that we think that would be likely to come through this region. And if you start to apply a very similar capture rate than we did on the workforce, essentially you've got about $9 million of annual spending that you could harness, assuming that you marketed to those visitors. Individual numbers for every person that you add to your community, that will add about 24 square feet of retail for every worker that you add annually. That gives you about 3 square feet of retail. For every visitor that you can capture daily, that gives you about 90 square feet annually of additional retail. And for every car that drives by, assuming that you merchandise it correctly on a daily basis, that can give you another bump of about 65 square feet of retail. So again, if you're marketing your community, these are certainly some good avenues, and I'll set up some sort of mechanism to measure the return, not only internal rate of return or net present value, so that you know when you spend $1 that you're going to get it, greater than that investment back. And then we recommend, certainly that there's certain hurdles, and that investment is for a limited time frame, so it's not an indefinite investment. We want to look for catalytic projects, those that certainly move the needle. That if you invest in that operator, that other operators would be invested. Maybe look at redistributing some sales tax for specific operators that align with that vision. Certainly a lot of local communities are doing facade improvement grants.
Branding is what other people think about you. It's not what you say you are. It's obvious and pervasive throughout the community. Community branding is probably some of the hardest branding of all. When you're branding a community, you have to have community buy-in. So you have to be able to set yourself apart from all the other communities that are around you. A brand is a promise. It's a promise that you make to the customers. In this case, your customers are your residents and your visitors. And if you make a promise to them about what they're going to experience in Tremonton, you make that promise in all your communications, but you must support it with your actions. Positive word of mouth, and that is the most important way in this day and age to spread your brand, is to have other people talking and saying good things about you. Embrace your geography, know who you are. Balance the fact that your brand is regional. Northern Utah is a regional brand, and you have other sister cities around here that will be part of your branding effort. And I think this is the most important thing, is to know what your brand is not. That you're a gateway to the great outdoors, that you're a friendly and a progressive town, that you're a 21st century agricultural community, and a place where the Old West is alive. You need to draw upon them all, and that's what I'm talking about, that multi-layered approach to branding. You are all of these things. To hire a professional to help your community develop a brand. You can hopefully in the report that we send back, we'll have some resources that you can look through to bring someone into the community to walk you through the process. This needs to be your #1 priority, because downtown is your most important business and industrial recruitment tool. Your entire community is going to be judged based on the quality and the vitality of your downtown. We saw the weeds growing out of the sidewalk everywhere. They're going to see boarded up storefronts. That's not inviting to anyone. These are things that are, that people see and do not reflect well. However, you do a lot of things right. Your murals are great. They speak wonderful things about your community and have you take pride in yourself and your building. So it's not all bad. You're off to a good start. The storefront where the museum is just exceptional. The attorney sign as a blade sign is a really great sign. It's a good example of signage, and the pedestrian can see it. And one business even took their tree well and planted some flowers. Create a downtown organization to help you grow into the 21st century. The picture at the top is one that we saw of downtown Tremonton in the 1950s. And a lot of you indicated, oh, we want it to be like it was then. Well, I've got news for you. It's not going to be exactly like that, but it can be just as thriving and just as active and just as much the center of the community in 2015 as it was in 1950. You just have to make sure that it's well managed. We would advise that you look into a little something called the Main Street approach to downtown revitalization. You need a downtown champion responsible for building consensus, engaging volunteers, and implementing programs. You need to develop partnerships. Obviously, the State Tourism Organization is important. You got to get on that website. And then you need to look at corporate sponsorship. That's what that same place looks like today. And so it can be done. You can transform your downtown just like this if you pull your community together and you get your community identity and that branding right.
These are the design principles that we focused on. The first they said is we want to accommodate traffic. We do not want to drive a single car off a main street, just making a more enjoyable experience. We want to really define downtown. That whole area from the canal to the railroad, from 400th to 200th. We don't really think you need on-street. It's not on-street parking for most of that.
kind of the bookend, your announcement that you're coming into town. Some entry features there, really drawing on the canal and making it a special feature as well, but drawing down the street, as Wayne said, with large trees there.
The idea here is get rid of an extra real estate that you don't need. So mostly 60 feet back from every curve, that really shouldn't be road. That's an opportunity to widen the sidewalks, make it safer for pedestrians to cross. And the area in between, you don't really need a center one. Narrowing the street can actually improve the flow of traffic because you have less turn movements. And you can see just from the colors, one color for cars eastbound and one color for cars westbound, that we're deliberately putting a curve into the road. Just enough curving that it slows down the speed of traffic.
This is the only area that we added a bike lane through town, is when you go uphill, they're right in front of Kent's. What it's meant to do is to take some of your extra drainage and allow it to soak in. So we heard a lot about, y'all can do whatever you want with the lanes, but you better take care of our snow because we have to put it somewhere. An added green belt where the existing drainage is allowed to stay, so that makes it a little less expensive. You're taking some of that pavement off the street, so it's 20% less snow that actually has to be hauled away. So not only do you have a place to put the rest of that snow, but 20% less snow needs to be hauled away. It doesn't have to all be done at one time. You can do things short term that make it a little bit different. Talked a little bit about the connectivity to the neighborhood, enhancing that connection down to the neighborhoods, bringing them into downtown, but also out further to I-15 and 84, and then out to Highway 15. The Malad River there on the right-hand side, and the trail system that's proposed there links in north and south. Main Street through the middle, Tremont down through the center there, and that is, kind of the heart of town. And then 600 north and 600 south. So along with those, you can really make a network through town.
This is a typical existing two-story building, or it could also be a new building proposed for the historic Main Streets district. These are the things you want to manage for a big, deep cornice on top of these things. The Downtown Revitalization Agency, the redevelopment agency that James spoke about, the director of that agency convenes a design committee. The design committee are largely residents, but some business owners. They write these guidelines, they approve the guidelines, and you go from that to that. A nice looking store with a kind of consistency, a design that meets your design standard. Catalyst sites, those are the sites that really do have an opportunity to turn the ship at this point. Principle being that you want to control the growth and regulate the growth there. You want the buildings close to the street. You're 60% of the frontage should be buildings, because you do want, though you're concerned about the viability of the hospitality use in the back, or whatever the use in the back is, and a lot of business is going to happen deep in the site, you still don't want to compromise the quality of the sidewalk. And the fact is, if some of those retailers or the restaurateurs can actually open up onto the sidewalk, then this is a much better thing. It's a win-win, for you and for the landowner, for the developer. The other one we looked at was Main and 400 West, and this is a 30-acre site. This has a huge capacity. The most complicated of them all is probably those big West End parcels. Reimagine Midland Square. The farmers market, there should be a no-brainer in this community. Where is it going to go? This is Midland Square is the right place for it. Right now, it's not currently designed to accommodate a lot of varying uses, but if we can take the monuments and the memorials and put them someplace else and develop a little more flexible, usable, flat outdoor space, a farmer's market or a movie, or many of the things that Jane were talking about could happen in this. This is the right place for them, the right location in the city. This should be a place where messages collect and where information is exchanged.
There's enough room to have seating and to walk past. This is where everything is going to start to happen on Main and Tremont. The pavement material at the intersection, the bump outs, the vegetation, it's all in there. This is the location. Trying to create that identity, that branding, some improvements to the bridge. You're going to do a median, so it's going to slow you down a little bit before you get to town. So it has a lot of character. It has a lot of potential, and you have space to do something with it. Make a little art fair. Maybe it's during the rodeo. It's an eyesore. It's something that's really fantastically. There was talk of someone with a restaurant wanted to